Hey everyone, it's Patricia from tarantulaheaven.com. Right here we have my Grammostola rosea, Spidey, and I'm very happy that she's out on her log for you guys today. If you do hear anything in the background, it's probably my kitten, Hiss, playing with something. She's always doing something, and I hope to have a lot more updates about her, but today I have a naughty update. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'll try to zoom in. She gave me a nice little bite right here. It hurt a lot. It was almost bleeding, and it's gonna leave me a nice bruise. So since we're talking about naughty behaviors today, I wanted to talk about some of the naughty behaviors of tarantulas. These creatures are absolutely amazing. They're beautiful. They're so much fun to learn about. They're so much fun to take care of. They're absolutely fascinating. However, they do some stuff that's really, really silly and really, really naughty. And if you guys have had tarantulas for a bit, you will agree with many of these. And if you are incredibly experienced, you may even find a few that I have not mentioned. So I'm gonna get right into it. My naughty tarantula behaviors that I have noticed since having a tarantula, or tarantulas. I used to have an Arizona blonde as well, who unfortunately passed away a few years ago as a very young sling, unfortunately. But this is what I have observed. The first one that comes to mind is all about their water dish. Tarantulas have a very special relationship with their water dish. I am not sure why, but they just do. What I have noticed and what I've heard from other tarantula owners is that their tarantulas will poop in the water dish. Particularly, they have this really great knowledge of when you've just refilled it with clean water. And so they love pooping in the water dish. They also love to throw dirt in the water dish, particularly when you've just refilled it with clean water. And I do not know why they do this. I'm wondering if they're trying to control the humidity in their enclosure in some weird way, but I actually think it's seriously just for fun. I don't think there's really a bigger reason why. I've also heard that if you hear a little tinkling, a tinkle bell in the background, Hiss is playing with one of her victims, her toy. It's a feathered toy. She's having so much fun. Anyway, so another thing that they like to do is flip over the water dish if they can. And don't be surprised either. I mean, some tarantulas are incredibly strong when they want to do something. Even though they're small and they seem to be light, they actually have a good amount of strength. They also enjoy burying their water dish. So perhaps even as they have thrown dirt in it, perhaps the next step in this naughty behavior is to start burying it. Spidey has done this a number of times. At one point, she actually had like 3 water dishes in her enclosure because 2 of them were underground. And I was like, okay. Blinky, my Arizona blonde that passed, they loved to bury their water dishes, and they also had several water dishes in their enclosure. So that's always fun. Another thing that I've noticed that Spidey in particular likes to do is she likes to lay in her water dish. And I don't mean like the kind of laying behavior that it looks like they're doing when they're drinking, when really they're just kind of hovering over the water. If it gets a little bit low in there, she'll actually choose like a dry part of the water dish and she will actually lay in it. And sometimes this prevents me from filling the water dish, and so I have to bring her a new one. So then she has 2 water dishes. She actually has a few little things in her enclosure right now, like her jar lid, because she just likes to lay in circular objects. I don't get it, but tarantulas are very much like cats. So if you know, you know. And another naughty behavior does have to do with pooping anyway, since we're talking about pooping in the water dish. They love to poop on the sides of their enclosure. So tarantulas are generally pretty neat, tidy creatures, which is a wonderful thing about owning them, honestly. They're not a smelly pet. They're not a dirty pet. They are pretty low maintenance. They maintain themselves. However, some tarantulas will have behaviors in terms of choosing one corner of their tank or one place in their tank to go to the bathroom or put like their old uneaten prey items that they've either wrapped or they're just finished with. They'll usually like choose a certain place in their enclosure to do it. So that's really cool. But one thing I have noticed And it's interesting, Spidey actually hasn't done it too much yet in this enclosure, but in her old glass enclosure, she loved to just scurry her butt up against the glass tank and just poop on it. And so that was fun stuff to clean. And I know that a lot of tarantulas do this as well. I've, particularly the antics, I have heard that they love to shoot their poop everywhere because they actually like projectile poop. Also heard of tarantula owners having their spiders poop on them when they're handling them. So yeah, these guys don't really care. They will poop wherever they want. But usually it's in one designated spot in their enclosure and it's not making a mess. This next one doesn't really have anything to do with the enclosure. It's more about their eating habits. And this one in particular is more directed at Spidey. She's a Girosea, Chilean rosehair, and this particular species is infamous for just fasting whenever they feel like it. She's not the only species that does this, but these tarantulas actually have a reputation for it. But yes, some tarantulas will just decide to stop eating for fun. A lot of times when tarantulas are not eating, it's because they're in pre-molt. But in Spidey's case, sometimes it has nothing to do with that. Sometimes she just gets in a mood and she doesn't want to eat. And it has honestly been a mystery to me why she continues to look so healthy and plump, because she can go well over a year without eating and you would not know, honestly. She always has like a round bum and she always looks very well hydrated. So that's a fun fact about tarantulas. They really don't need a lot of food. They're very, very adapted to survival. But they do need water. Water is always the most important thing for them. The next two things are going back to the enclosures. So tarantulas love to hide, and so a lot of owners become disgruntled when they have taken time to make these beautiful enclosures, handpick lots of great decorations, and take care to make little spots for them. A lot of tarantula owners put a lot of thought into what kind of hides they are giving their tarantulas, only to find out that their tarantula doesn't use any of it. A lot of tarantula owners have complained about their tarantulas not knowing how to use their hides. Like they'll actually be on top of them instead of inside them, which Spidey's actually doing right now. She's on top of her log, which she does like to lay on, which is fine. But her log's first purpose is actually to be a hide and a dark place for her. And she does go in it every now and then. But there are periods of Spidey's life where she doesn't go inside any hides and she just stays on top. So, you know, tarantulas are going to do what they're going to do. But a lot of times tarantulas misuse their tanks or repurpose them in ways that are not really what we intended or desire. And one thing I'll say about tarantulas, which I've really learned with Spidey and Blinky, is that they will remodel their homes the way that they like it. So you may have a grand idea, but their plan is always going to be the one that wins. Spidey's tank, I mean, she can't rip these out because they're pretty in there, buried in the dirt. But in terms of the other stuff, she has moved her moss ball around. She has moved her bunnies around, the ping pong ball around. Anything that she can move, she has. And in the past, she's, buried things. She's dragged things across the enclosure. In the past, she has ripped out fake plants out of her dirt, or like trampled them and bent them out of shape. And with Blinky, my Arizona blonde, this spider just liked to tunnel. It didn't matter what I did on the surface. They were just gonna be underground having a great time. So they're gonna do what they're gonna do. And actually that's kind of the charm, honestly. It's really nice now that I know that is just what they're gonna do. It's really nice to see what they actually adapt and do in their enclosures, despite what I think that I might like to look at. It's their home. They know how they want it. And I promise you that they will show you. And the last one that I'd like to talk about, and I really encourage you guys to tell me any more that I missed in the comments and share your experiences, is climbing their walls and the tops of their enclosures. This is naughty behavior. Some tarantulas are able to do this safely. I'm talking more about the terrestrial tarantulas that are supposed to stay on the ground, like Miss Spidey here. Sometimes this is not their fault. Sometimes climbing the walls trying to get away from the ground is because there's something in their enclosure that is not comfortable for them. I've noticed that in the beginning of my tarantula keeping journey, when I would put Spidey in somewhat moist substrate, I quickly realized that she hates that. Any moisture on the substrate she does not want to be anywhere near. So she would climb on the walls for days until it dried out, which was probably very exhausting for her, and I feel bad about that. Some tarantulas really are very particular about the type of substrate, the moisture of the substrate. Spidey's species does like dryness on the substrate, so that I did learn that. So the ones that are not supposed to climb, it's actually quite dangerous for them to do that because they don't have like the grippies on their feet. They have them, but they're not as good as other tarantulas who are arboreal and are supposed to be doing that. They will also, and you have to really safeguard your enclosures, guys, because they can get on the top of the enclosure. I used to have Spidey in a pretty big enclosure with a mesh lid, which was actually incredibly dangerous for her. Don't suggest it. And there were times where I didn't think she'd be able to do this, but she actually got onto the mesh and would be like walking across the mesh, which is so dangerous. She could have fallen. She got stuck once and I had to rescue her. Very, very concerning. So you want to kind of make the enclosure really comfortable for them so that they don't have to escape any stressors. Oh, she's moving. Very good. And you also want to make sure that if they do happen to get onto the lid or climb a wall, that one, the top of the enclosure is not easy for them to latch onto, which is why I've switched to a plexiglass top with vents on the sides instead of a mesh top with ventilation on top. I feel like this is the safest. And you also want to make sure that there's not a lot of height for the tarantula to fall, especially these terrestrial types. They're just not as good at gripping walls or climbing, despite what they may think, as the arboreal tarantulas who are actually made for this. So anyway, I'm glad you guys got to see Spidey move for a second. I wish you a wonderful Tarantula Tuesday, and like I said, please let me know if there's anything that you have observed that I have left out. Take care, guys.